Hi everyone, my name is Ariana Chavez, and I'll be presenting a case study from Taiwan that looks at how culturally responsive education strategies can strengthen a child's cultural identity. This connects directly to diversity in culture and public health, since education is a social determinant of health and it can influence a person's long-term well-being. The presentation focuses on a preschool in Taiwan where local cultural curriculum was developed to help young children build their cultural identity. Okay, so education, as we know, is a very important social determinant of health. When it's inclusive education, it supports equity and well-being. But most times, the school curriculum will often ignore cultural identity. It can leave children feeling excluded or disconnected from the community in the school. This lack of representation can cause stress, it can lower self-esteem for folks, and even reinforce inequities, which can therefore extend into long-term health and educational disparities. One example of how ignoring culture in education creates disparities can be seen with Indigenous students in the United States. Research has shown that many schools devalue native languages and their traditions and really only focusing on standardized English-based curricula. Um, so this was an article by um, Brayboy and Castellano in 2009. They found that when Indigenous culture is excluded from schools, the students often felt disconnected or alienated. It contributed to lower engagement in the classroom, contributes to higher dropout rates, and of course, that does affect also their classmates. Research has also shown that when young people have a strong sense of identity and belonging, it can protect their mental health. It can really help them feel safe and supported in those communities. So when this isn't happening at school, it can really cause a domino effect. So the case I'm reviewing today is a great example of how education can be used as a public health tool in order to reduce these disparities. All right, so let's get into the case study. This was done in a preschool classroom in Taiwan. The researcher wanted to develop a curriculum that supported the children's cultural identity. Taiwan has faced globalization just like many other countries. Standardized curriculum are often just like the norm. But by starting to incorporate cultural practices at an early age, when children are impressionable, they can start to value like the lessons that they're learning. And Taiwan recognized this need. They wanted to move towards a more local curriculum development. When starting this, they realized that this was like the perfect setting to start this initiative. And the lessons that the students learned through included elements of their local traditions. They were able to attend festivals, try foods, and community practices that I'll talk more about on the later slides. By doing this, the purpose was for children to start to build pride, a sense of belonging, and engagement instead of feeling disconnected from their education and their communities too. So it kind of puts a divide in, um, from their community and their education. Instead, they wanted to refocus that into making everybody a more well-rounded community. All right, so the methods section. This study was set up as a qualitative case study. The researcher looked really closely at one preschool in Taiwan. They used a few different sources of information, like the observations from the classroom, so they were able to observe the students and how they were interacting, the records of what the curriculum actually was, like the activities and all of that that went into this intervention. And then lastly, the teacher reflections about how the lessons went. So they were able to kind of record their observations and how the teachers also felt about the program. And then the main focus was to see how local culture was actually built into the lessons and how the students were responding to it. These were some findings. So one of the main findings was how the curriculum actually brought culture into the classroom. The kids got to celebrate local festivals by singing songs, practicing dances, making craft projects that related to whatever it was that they were celebrating. And then they can later take home and again, building those bridges to the house as well back home. They can tell their parents when they get back home what they did that day and also what projects they were doing. They explore traditional foods, sometimes cooking activities, or even just tasting things that are a part of the culture. Again, very engaging. They were also lessons around community customs where teachers may have used like stories or role play so kids can learn through those experiences. Overall, it really connected their home life with school and combined both of those worlds for the kids, and they can see their culture reflected in the classroom. Moving on, here are some more findings. These findings are just about how the children responded to the intervention. The lessons that were taught were connected to their culture. They were way more enthusiastic about learning and engaged compared to the regular educational lessons. But even then, it kind of built community within their classroom. They started to share stories and traditions in class. They did feel a little bit more open, which not only gave them confidence, but also helped their classmates learn more about each other. Their teachers really helped bridge the gap too. They were, of course, number one supporters in this, creating an environment where they can feel included and supported. There were some limitations. It was done only in one preschool in Taiwan, so the findings can't automatically be applied to all the schools or cultural settings. The study also just looked at a short-term engagement in the classroom and not whether these effects lasted over time as the children grew up. And most of this data came from teacher reflections and observations. So we really didn't hear like the children's point of view, how they liked it. We just kind of go based off of like the researchers' observations. And then lastly, the limitation suggests that there should be more research. There is a lot more research needed doing this across multiple schools, even maybe including parents and the children's perspective to see how it goes and what home life looks like too. So, conclusion, the big takeaway from this case is that when schools integrate local culture, it can help children build their identity and belonging. Even at an early age, they can start to feel like they belong and they are supported. Starting this early childhood lays that foundation for equity and well-being later on in life. This study reminds us that education and culture are not just classroom issues, they are also public health strategies that can help reduce disparities over the long term. All right, and these are my references. Thank you all for listening.